I'm Scott Falconer. Myself and my family, we live in rural Mozambique. We've been there for almost 10 years. Yeah, it's been a privilege.
Hi, I'm Beck Falconer. I've been living in Mozambique for almost 15 years now. I moved there, but as a family we've been there for 10 years with our 5 kids, living among a predominantly Islamic people group in northern Mozambique. I think the part of the gospel that I've been really struck by is like the now and the not yet. Like it's not just for life now, it's for salvation, but it's also not just for salvation, but it's now. And so that idea of Jesus as like a transformative power, you know, the idea of the gospel being, you know, the good news of us being at peace with God, you know, that idea of shalom across, you know, with relationship with God, relationship with each other, relationship with creation, and that idea, and that actually being for us now and in the future. And I think I've really seen that in Mozambique. Like I think I've seen those moments, you know, where you sit with someone and you just see that they get it, you know, they just have that moment of, oh, like God's a father and he loves me, you know, and that's a really like aha moment. I don't know, I love that. So I get really excited by that. Like, and so I think, yeah, I think when you're sitting and, you know, I think of some women that I've been journeying with and, you know, when you sit and you journey with them and you know, you're taking their kids to the hospital when they're sick and you're talking about their struggles in their marriages and, you know, you're visiting their farms and seeing their crops and you're kind of walking alongside them and having these conversations about how God's in those things and over all those things and part of all those things and you see them really get it, like, and you just see just that moment of going, oh, God sees me, God knows me, God cares about all of this, God cares about me. He sent Jesus, like that's good news. And I think, yeah, I think for me that's been that moment of realising how big the gospel is. You know, how small and personal it is in terms of it's good news for me, it's good news for you, but how big it is in that it's good news for all of us. Like it's good news for the earth, you know, and every person on it and every family on it, and that it's not just good news for us. You know, I've had those conversations with people where they, like, you know, I've been asked kind of like, oh, isn't Jesus the white man's God? You know, and I'm like, no, like, you know, that's a box that we put him in. You know, that's a perception we have where we kind of constrain him with our traditions or with our own beliefs, you know, but that idea that Jesus is for all, you know, he died for all and he was the price for all, and that idea that he restores all our relationships, I think, has really just impacted me a lot in the last however many years that I've been there now. So.
When you say gospel, the face that comes to mind is my friend Musa, and it's been a journey with Musa. Like it hasn't been a one-off sharing the gospel with him, but it's been sharing stories and sharing life and all of those things together. Yeah, and it's just been it's been a journey for him, and it's been exciting to see him walk along the path of experiencing God, knowing God, and just understanding what it is to follow Jesus. Well, I think with Musa, for instance, I think, you know, he's been on this journey, and lots of the time you think, oh, he should have said the sinner's prayer, or he should understand this first, or he should understand that first. You know, and more recently he came and he sat down with me and he said, oh, look, I want to pray. And his prayer showed his journey. His prayer showed his acceptance of Jesus as Lord. His prayer showed, you know, the journey he's been on. He thanked God for sending us, for sharing with him the truth about Jesus. And leading him from darkness into light, and you know, that's just it just laid out the gospel for me in his own words, without ever having to say, you know, well, you need to say this prayer in order to share the gospel or in order to follow Jesus.
I think maybe one of the things that I've been really struck by maybe is how Western my view of some of the words that we use to describe the gospel are. so, you know, I'm thinking about even words like, you know, like what is love? You know, and what is peace? You know, and what do these things actually look like, and how narrow my view of what love is. And so when I look at someone or I look at something and I think, oh, that's loving or that's not loving, and I judge it, or when I'm talking to people about God is love, what I think they should understand from that is, but actually realizing as I sit in another culture, you know, how they define life, like what love looks like is so different to what it looks like for us. And so it's actually really broadened my view, I think, of the gospel rather than narrowed it in that sense, because I think it's helped me realize that, you know, when we look at the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, and this is what it's going to look like as we grow in Christ likeness, actually realizing that that's far bigger than what I think it is. Like, you know, I think that I'm, you know, a loving person and I love like this, but actually as I've got to know more friends in Mozambique, realize actually love looks like this as well, and love looks like this, and love looks like that, and they're not things I would have necessarily seen as love, but recognizing that they are. I had a fascinating, so for a while, I decided I would study the fruit of the Spirit, just personally, and then I thought, oh, this would be a really interesting thing to do culturally, and to, you know, as I kind of took a fruit of the Spirit for a week or a couple of weeks, I would then go and kind of talk about it with everyone that I met, and ask them what they thought it looked like, and how do you think you get it, and all those kinds of things. And you know, I was probably a little bit naive in my thinking. Like I was like, oh, this is going to be good, and I'll just, you know, I'll do love today, joy tomorrow, peace, you know, next day. Honestly, I spent a month on peace and I talked to every person that I met for a month about peace, and I asked them what it looked like and how they thought they got it, and we looked at biblical passages, and I just, like, my view of peace just went like this, you know, because I started to realize that although these people I was talking to aren't following Jesus and they didn't understand how God defined peace, they had an idea of what they thought peace should be, you know, and they had an idea in their culture of what peace should look like, you know. And so as we started to look at the biblical text, and actually I started to kind of really go, well, what does actually God say about peace? I saw elements of what they were saying in that, which I probably hadn't really articulated myself. And so that, yeah, I think that's been part of my journey, is recognizing that so many of these things, even when I think about like how we share the gospel, you know, we talk about it as, you know, we're guilty of sin and Jesus died for us, you know, we were judged guilty, died for our sin. That's a very bad gospel message. But in the context where we are, like, everything is based around shame and honor and fear and power. And so, you know, you're always looking to maintain and restore honor, you know, and so you're always looking at relationships and what you've done to show honor in a relationship, or how a relationship has given you honor. And then you're always looking at fear and power. And so you're always looking at manipulating spirits and other things because you don't want to fear. And so, you know, when you look at the gospel and you reframe it in that way, I actually think the biblical text talks to those things. I think I don't know if we avoid them or we don't see them maybe in our context. You know, the gospel message when I was growing up that I heard was always just about, you're guilty, you know, Jesus has taken the punishment, now you're saved, kind of thing. But actually when I look at it, I look, wow, yeah, you know, we've been dishonored, you know, we're shamed, you know, and we've shamed God, you know, and actually God has sent his son to restore our honor and his honor and to restore relationship, you know, and we're fearful, you know, and we're looking at controlling things and manipulating things so that we don't live in fear, you know, but, you know, we're seeking power from different things, success and all kinds of things. But actually, you know, God and through Jesus demonstrated his ultimate authority and power over all things, you know, on earth. And so again, I think, you know, when I put my gospel message on people where we are, and it's kind of guilty and justice, it doesn't speak to them in that context. But when I actually look at the broader gospel, I think, wow, actually, there's stuff we're missing. You know, there's stuff around restoration of relationship and restoration of shalom and all these things that we miss a lot, but actually that really they get.